Hello everybody, how y'all doing? Hopefully you're doing all right. Hopefully you can see everything correctly. Might be a little close. Thought I'd do a little honing from a different angle. Just gonna take this new out of the box gold dollar and set a bevel real quick. Hopefully y'all can see and hear me. See it and hear me, I should say. It's quite a hot day out here. Just using a little torque to cut a bevel. We're getting some movement. Take this pocket scope and see where we're at. We're getting along. Still got some work to do. Checking the wear pattern on the spine and the edge bevel flat. Give it another peek. When you're setting your bevel, you really need to do a good job of it. The heel is there, but the tip is lacking. Vast majority of your work is setting the bevel, taking out damage. Heel's good. Let's say could use a little work on the tip still. I'm working from heel to tip with torque, adding a little rock. Keeping the wear even. Feels really nice. Alright, bevel's set, cleaned up, balanced. What I need to do now is refine it. There's a lot of ways you can do that. You can use an intermediate stone, like this 5K Shapton Kuramaku or a professional series, with a graded Naniwa 5K Nagura. Raise a light slurry. Freshen the surface of the stone. I've been asked a lot about false edges and foil burrs and how do you finish. Everybody seems to know how to hone, but very few people really talk about finishing. What is finishing? Blah blah blah. Well, I mean, we're never not finishing, I guess, but basically finishing is closing the apex and minimizing any false edge or anytime you hone, which is this movement, you know, edge forward, you're minimizing the burr to an extent, but there's these two angles, let's say the, you know, face and obverse of the blade, make up two very acute sides. So figure this is between 14 and 18 inclusive out here at the apex. That will create a very floppy piece of metal. Now the higher the tension, or the higher the heat treat of the carbon steel, let's say, if it's simple carbon steel, it's almost worse than if it was softer, because it won't wear off. It won't snap off, and you don't really want it to snap off. But you do need to close the apex. Make it as fine and as clean as possible. And that's what you do on your strop. Slurry will help minimize any problems, but it's never going to completely close the apex. I'll take another look at it here in the scope. You want a nice polish out to the apex, you know, a spot that you can't really see. If you've got any problems, now's the time to find them. To me, it looks like I need to do a little more work out of the apex on the toe. So I'm going to work uniformly from heel to toe until the toe looks right. You don't want to just work one section of the blade, because then you'll have imbalance. You'll get a frown, or you'll wear the toe out artificially. Whatever you do back here towards the heel, you should do at the toe also. If that makes any sense. Otherwise you'll get an imbalance from your wear, and well, then you're just not doing any good, are you? Dropping it off on that soft glide paper. I think that's good enough. We'll take a finishing hone, in this case a Hero Koseki stone. Raise a nice, said we raise a nice lather. Put my razor down here. Rather hot today, so you don't want to get too careless and get it too dry with these synthetic stones. Could say that I'm moving the edge closer and closer to a finish. Checking the polish under the light. Looks good. Now you might be thinking I'm finishing right now, and you're not wrong. But with a straight razor, if you really want to clean the edge, you're going to have to do something that a lot of the old dogs that get on the forums are going to consider blasphemy. But if you want a good, hard, clean apex that'll shave you well and won't stutter or isn't a false apex, you're going to have to do something different than just work on a stone. There's a reason we have hanging strops or paddle strops that have deflection built into them. You can minimize your burr doing advanced gymnastics on your stone, but it's the strop is where you're going to finish for real. Well, your strop and your last bit of stonework. Just clean your mess up as you go. Always use a stropping motion. Got a nice mirror polish. Now we're going to finish. We're going to finish on a strop. And that means we're going to strop on a hanging strop. Now a lot of people only strop tight. They say, oh well, that's how you finish. No, that's how you maintain and clean and, you know, daily strop maintenance. Keep it fairly taut. But when you've been honing, you can't see it with your eye. I don't care how good of a microscope you have. You've got a very weak section of metal right out at the apex. You can't see it. So what I do is I soften my strop. I don't use abrasives on my strops, so I have to use the natural friction and a little bit of the ability of the strop to wrap around just a little bit more and pluck off the apex. And everybody, well, you know, that's just weakening the apex. Really? How hard do you think steel is? Honestly. You don't want anything that's weak enough to be damaged by stropping on your apex. And I'm using a little deflection, and I'm going to bring it back out to how a lot of other people strop. Come back to the finish hone. And what you'll notice is you'll lose a little bit of your undercut. I'm sure some of you have honed for very long have noticed that after you've been stropping, you go back to your finishing hone for a touch-up, or your 5K even, which is what I recommend. You'll have lost your undercut. It takes a couple dozen laps to bring it back, depending on how fast and fine your finish hone is. That's because you've micro-convexed a small section of your apex. And everybody's like, oh my God, that'll make it shave terrible. No, actually it won't. You'll get an amazingly smooth shave. You should always have a little bit of play in your strop anyway. If you want to hone every day, then sure, you can never even touch a strop. You can just use that fake apex to hone, but you'll notice after your second or third shave that it'll start not feeling very good and you have to go back and get the finishing hones again. This is horsehide, my favorite, if I'm sweating on it, so that's great. I'm sure I'm going to get some know-it-alls in the comments telling me how wrong I am. Well, you shave your edges and I'll shave mine. Folks seem to appreciate my edges just fine. Now, should have a nice, clean, crisp, firm apex all the way out. No problems. Now, you won't get as much irritation if you shave and if you hone like that. Your edges will last longer because you're not trying to shave with a fake edge. A lot of people think that, you know, if you use any type of, let me dry it real quick, that sweat won't be good for it, you know. Speaking of that, if you live in humid areas, it's never a bad idea to douse your freshly honed or used razor in some clippercide before you put it away or sell it. Give it a nice light dust in the clippercide. Skin safe. Anyway, folks, I figure that that's quite enough. That'll probably make someone short their gasket, and that's fine with me. If you ever wonder why your edges don't seem to last, maybe you should try around with your stropping. Don't use any downward pressure when you use a slack strop. You don't need any. The natural deflection will wrap and clean that apex right up, and you will have amazing shaves. Folks, I hope this has been a lot of fun. Hope this has been informative. Have a great one. Peace.